Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
You know, I'm definitely a guy who likes to live in the present, and I'm ecstatic. I'm excited to be here. I'm enjoying myself. I'm having a lot of fun, and even better, I get to enjoy it with my family because they're here as well.
You know, we've had 5 guys that have been arrested. 2 are no longer with us, and I hate that for them. But our team's moved on, and it's very important that we don't make the same mistakes twice.
Or 3 times, or 4 times, or 5, or 6, or 7, or 8, as the case may be at Georgia. Welcome, welcome, welcome into Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. We continue our coverage of SEC Football Media Days for 2016. Halfway home, 7 coaches in the can now. We had 4 more come through today: Georgia, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. What do they all have in common? They all plan to beat the Gamecocks this season. We shall see if they're able to carry it off. Phil Kornbluth here in Hoover, Professor Tom Hayes back at our studios in downtown Columbia with Carson Mason. K-Mac, who worked yesterday, he gets the rest of the week off by contract after working one day this week. 800-956-7266, the number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @SportsTalkSCPro. Everybody should be happy today. The stock market hit a new all-time high. That should put everybody in a good mood. Let's forget about all the bad stuff of the recent past and just be happy that the stock market is climbing, putting money in our accounts, we hope.
Well, the problem is it fell so far, and now you're climbing back that hole. Now you're waiting for the mud to hit the ledge when you reach for the top and you slip back down. That's just
no mud.
Slippery slope.
No
anyway.
Mud. No mud on the ledge.
Don't put your life on the stock market. If you have your life on the stock market, you'll be hooked up to an electrocardiogram, worrying about when your next heart attack is going to happen.
Well, just enjoy the good news for a day. At least enjoy it for a day. 800-956-7266 is our number. If you're happy and you want to show it, clap your hands and give us a call. 800-956-7266. Email is talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @sportstalksc. Follow along on Twitter. Be part of our Twitter family. It is the most harmonious, sanctimonious, sarcastic, whatever you want to say, collection of opinions in the sports world. So feel free to join in and follow along with us on Twitter. All right, we're going to hear from the coaches tonight. Kirby Smarts from Georgia, first time here, period. Maybe he visited as an assistant coach, but first time here as a head coach. Dan Mullen of Mississippi State, he's a veteran. Butch Jones of Tennessee. I tell you, the more I look at Tennessee, the more I like. My goodness, they look good. And Kevin Sumlin of Texas A&M got a shiny new quarterback who transferred in. Program like his shouldn't be relying on transfer quarterbacks, to be quite honest with you. If a guy flamed out at Oklahoma, what makes you think you can win with him at Texas A&M? Back in a moment. continue with Sports Talk here on a Tuesday night from Hoover, Alabama, site of the SEC Media Days for 2016. Georgia, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Texas A&M all coming through today. We'll hear from the head coaches. News-wise, nothing real earth-shattering. You would have expected a couple of coaches to receive some pointed – well, all coaches receiving some pointed questions. And in the case of Georgia, question to Kirby Smart, a couple of them about the discipline, about behavior players, that sort of thing. Nobody asked him directly, at least not in the big room. Nobody asked him directly about the most recent incident with Jonathan Ledbetter. Basically, he just summarized it all by saying they got to help the players. They'll always help the players. They'll do the best they can to help the players. And he mentioned that a couple of the guys who got into trouble are no longer at Georgia, so indicating that they do have discipline in the program from that standpoint. Dan Mullen at Mississippi State was asked a couple of times about the is it Jeremy or Jeffrey? The Simmons kid, the big high school freshman defensive lineman who was caught on videotape clubbing a woman in the parking lot of an apartment complex over some sort of family feud sort of deal. Dan Mullen said that the decision, he was part of the decision, but it was made by the university to let him in without any penalty, that you don't judge somebody by a 10-second video clip, that he's a fine young man, a good young man, et cetera, et cetera. He was asked about domestic violence and, does he condone it and all this sort of stuff, or would he take action against players involved with it? And, of course, you ask a coach that question, you're going to know the answer you're going to get there. Bush Jones at Tennessee paid homage to Pat Summitt. And in our session, big room, I don't think anything was asked about the settlement, the recent settlement with Title IX and that issue at Tennessee. And I don't think he has any ongoing player issues to speak of. So everything's pretty calm there. Good looking. I tell you, 19 returning starters, quarterback, running back, receivers, terrific defensive players. I don't see how Tennessee won't be voted East, maybe win the whole thing, possibly get the vote to win the whole thing. Kevin Sumlin at Texas A&M talked about having some new coaches, confident that John Chavis is going to get the defense turned around and playing a lot better. Feels like, with their defensive ends in particular, they're going to be stout on defense. Trevor Knight, he thinks, is the answer at quarterback. Looking forward to having him in the quarterback room and running the offense, and looking just to turn things around after a disappointing couple of seasons there at Texas A&M. So that's the overview of what we heard from the coaches. We'll let you hear from them a little bit later on as we move on through the program tonight. 800-956-7266, the number. If you want to join in, let me update a couple of other things of note today. We had another watch list come out. This one is the Butkus Award for the top linebacker in the country. On that watch list from USC is T.J. Holloman. And I would imagine that Sky Moore would have been on there if he were not already declared out for the season. From Clemson, linebacker Ben Boulware is also on the Butkus Award watch list. Hard to believe that Boulware is now a senior. He's had 221 tackles, 14.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, 4 interceptions, has caused 3 fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries. He is a stat stuffer, and a lot of people thought he'd never play much at Clemson or play at a very high level, and he's been nothing but a stud the entire time that he has played for the Tigers. Sad story from Presbyterian College. Student athlete Stevie Wilson, team manager and a former linebacker on the football team, passed away last night. He's a former Wando player. He was a chemistry major in his 4th year at PC. Team was informed of the death during a team meeting last night. So obviously a sad time for both the folks at Presbyterian and as well at Wando High School. So we send out our condolences there. Let's see here. Jerome Singleton, good news for him. The executive director, the commissioner of the South Carolina High School League, has been elected by the National Federation of High Schools Board of Directors to the position of president-elect for the upcoming year. The new president is Gary Musselman, who's in Kansas. He's the executive director of the Kansas State High School Activities Association. So he has it this year, and then it will be Jerome Singleton in charge. Pretty heady job there. Dan Scott, congratulations to him. Named the director of broadcasting at Furman today. Voice of the Paladins over the past 5 years. Also does some sports talk in the upstate. Does a terrific job. So congratulations to him on that. And the Joe Paterno story reared its ugly head today because of the release of a testimony in a Philadelphia court back in 2014 related to the Jerry Sandusky abuse case. The transcripts showed that in testimony that the former assistant coach McQuarrie said that former assistant coaches that he saw, former assistant coaches, or he informed former assistant coaches Tom Bradley and Greg Schiano of Sandusky abusing young boys, that they knew about it. And I think maybe the most damning thing to come out of it was his comment about Joe Paterno. And according to the testimony, he said that he told Paterno about what he saw Sandusky do. And he was asked in court, is it accurate that Coach Paterno quickly said to you, quote, "I don't want to hear about any of that kind of stuff. I have a football season to worry about." And this was the victim. This is according to the victim's lawyer. The victim was testifying here. The victim's lawyer asked McQuarrie, and he said specifically, "Yes, I was shocked, disappointed, and offended. I was insulted. I said, is that all you're going to do? You're not going to do anything else?" So since this came out today, both Bradley and Schiano have denied knowing anything at all about what went down in this particular case. And this comes on the heels of a movement as recently as, last week by some former Penn State players wanting Penn State to re-erect the statue to Joe Paterno and put the wall back up with all his historical accomplishments. Can't see that happening with this information now coming out to the public. This is very, very damning stuff.
And of course, it's also shines a bad light on, and they'll deny it does, but it has to put a smudge on their present employers, because I think Greg Schiano is coordinating the defense at Ohio State and Bradley's D coordinator at UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
So, that floats over there. But let's face it, we, as tight-knit and as long as they stay together, a coaching staff is, even during the off season and keeping connected with recruiting, guys knew. I mean, I wasn't born yesterday. I wasn't born the day before yesterday either. So quite a few people knew. And if the head man wanted it covered up, let's face it, he was a living God at Penn State. And if he wanted it covered up, guys were afraid to speak up. And those who did probably weren't employed very long. So it's one of those things where, yes, you will give homage to a tremendous guy who brings a lot of respect to your athletic program, but don't make him bigger than life, because these things can happen.
Let me clarify one thing. The testimony I was quoting and the reaction with the Paterno conversation was from the victim, John Doe 150. So I want to make that clear. That's where that came from. Back in a moment. Back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266 is the phone number if you want to join us on the program. Our poll question on the website, sportstalksc.com, with the vote coming up Thursday morning, the annual media balloting will be announced for SEC Media Day projections for the upcoming season. Poll question is, the SEC media, the wise men and women that we are, what prediction will be made for USC in the East? 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th? And right now, 27% are predicting a 4th place placement of the Gamecocks. Then 22% are saying 5th, 19% say 7th, 18% say 6th, and 13% say 3rd. Yeah, the getting to 3rd, I think, in the minds of these voters is impossible. But the Gamecocks can certainly muster up enough interest to grab 4th. I think 4th will come down to either USC or Kentucky. And then you'll have maybe Vanderbilt, because I think people were impressed by what Derek Mason said yesterday. And then probably Missouri last. We'll have their coach in tomorrow. Tomorrow we've got Missouri, Alabama, Arkansas, and Kentucky. So Alabama's coming in first wave through in the morning, so it'll be a madhouse there at the Winfrey, as it normally is when Alabama shows up. Everybody wants to see God in person and reach out and touch him and be touched if at all possible. So that place will be packed with crazy Alabama fans. So I think that, South Carolina, and again, the preseason poll, as I pointed out yesterday, only 5 times in its history, which dates back to 92, has the media actually accurately picked the team that went on to win the SEC championship. It's just nice to be well thought of by the media. I think the Gamecocks will be hard-pressed when the preseason all-SEC team is announced. Who could South Carolina have on the preseason all-SEC team that the media would vote for?
He's gone, by the way. He's out for the season. Would have been Sky Moore.
Yeah, Sky Moore would be one. Maybe Alex. I don't know. Alex Fry will get some votes. Sean Kelly will get some votes, but I don't know if either will get enough. I'm just thinking about the offense or the defense, and truly,
I think
there's
no
one that stands out.
I think you'll have probably one of your offensive linemen, Knott or Zandy, make maybe the 3rd team.
You think Zandy might make 3rd team?
Mm-hmm. Outside or not. I mean, he really played when he's healthy. He plays a pretty good center. So it'll be interesting.
Well, I think again, this is setting up well for South Carolina in that in your first year, why not keep your expectations low or let them be kept low by others, and then you overachieve them. And everybody thinks you're a genius if you do that. All right, break coming up, bottom of the hour. We'll be back.
In December, I was given an opportunity of a lifetime, and I hadn't slowed down since. My first objective was to
Well, another tweet today from Steve Spurrier about his upcoming book that was written by Buddy Martin. And I guess, is this supposed to be an autobiography or just a biography?
It's an autobiography. He along with the author wrote the book. And apparently he totally wrote some of the chapters, did Spurrier.
Yeah.
In the book.
Doing it differently and winning. We made a few revisions. I'm just looking at his tweet here. Doing it differently and winning. Is that the name of the book? It's got his picture. It's got several pictures of him. If this is the cover of the book, it's got several pictures of him. One, the very famous picture of him with no shirt on and in shorts.
Oh, no.
Picture of him smiling with a Gamecock helmet. Couple of I don't know if this is the book cover or what, if it's just some sort of advanced flyer. But, keep in mind that he's already had one book written about him recently. And he was none too happy about some portions of that book. As you might recall, we had the author with us on the show a couple of times. And pretty much threw that book and the author under the bus and in the garbage can because of something he'd written about his father. It'll be interesting to see comparing what is written about Spurrier's relationship with his father in this book compared to what was written in that book, and what the difference will be, because he was none too happy about. Here it is. Here's the title of this book. Here. Okay. Head Ball Coach: My Life in Football, Steve Spurrier, with Buddy Martin, forwarded by Paul Feinbaum. Of course, got the whole now on the cover with the cover is colored Florida Gamecock fans. Okay, so I'll tell you that right now. It's not colored in garnet and black. It's colored in blue and orange. So take that for what it's worth. Unless they might put together a special cover to sell in South Carolina.
There you go. Just like Lou Holtz had the Carolina thing on his book, and then you saw the other the paperback copies of it had him in his Notre Dame garb. But the interesting thing, Phil, I heard that the publishing company did not like the original title of the book, but being around Spurrier and interviewing him a couple of times, I kind of figured that title would have worked for me. And apparently the title that the publisher didn't like was something like Steve Spurrier, Football, This, That, and the Other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is what he used to say all the time. Mm-hmm. Well, this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Head ball coach, my life in football, doing it differently and winning. Okay, so that's all part of the title. Doing it differently and winning by Steve Spurrier and Buddy Martin. So it's out there and ready to be picked up. Now let's go to Georgia. First in the big room today, Kirby Smart making his first appearance as the Georgia Bulldogs head coach. And, he replaces a coach who won 146 games in 15 years, who won 9 games last year. Don't forget, Brian McClendon gets credit for the bowl win. So he's 1-0 as he is at USC now. And Mark Richt went 9-3 and got shown the door. I guess not winning enough SEC championships and not making the playoffs and all that. Not enough for him to continue as the head dog. So they turned to Kirby Smart. So the expectations are definitely high by the fans and everybody else around Georgia as Smart replaces a legend in Mark Richt, who did a lot of great things. And Smart knows that he's got to have success. And he's got to have it pretty soon. Here is Kirby Smart.
In December, I was given an opportunity of a lifetime, and I hadn't slowed down since. My first objective was to assemble a great staff. Every guy that I hired has been at an SEC school in some capacity, has some part of the SEC attached to them. I thought that was important. A lot of NFL experience on our staff, I thought that was important. But by far and away, the most important thing in assembling our staff was the quality of men and how they develop leadership and character for our team. And I think each guy I was able to hire on our staff is really good at that, along with the attachment to the SEC. In a big part, the next objective for us after assembling the staff was setting the tone in the strength and conditioning program. We were able to hire Scott Sinclair from Marshall, and he hired a great staff, and those guys are really driving our players and getting great gains in the strength and conditioning program. Our student athletes at Georgia have responded well to our new expectations. We've driven them in the weight room. We've got a mantra right now of attack the day, ATD, and they've done that every day in and day out. These kids have come to work, and they worked hard in the weight room. They've responded well to Coach Sinclair's staff and also our coaching staff being in there. You know, the transition and familiarity for me with our team was a little different than most new coaching jobs. You know, a lot of these players I knew through recruiting. I'd actually been in a lot of their homes through recruiting, so I had a good feel for our team. I also, being in the conference, helped know a little bit about these guys. But, you know, in saying that, earning their trust is a different factor. I really think in order to push kids and coach kids the way we want to coach them, you've got to have their trust. It takes quality time. It takes being truly invested in them as a person to earn that trust. And our staff has made that a top priority to spend that quality time with our players so that we can have their trust and make great demands on them to be great student athletes at the University of Georgia. You know, we had a very productive spring that was capped off by an SEC attendance record. 93,000 hungry dog fans came out. And with that, I just say it means more. It means more at the University of Georgia. To have 93,000 people there is really incredible. Bring practice off after 15 days of hard work and getting better to what you can simulate as a real game. And that was great for our kids. And although spring ball went well in terms of players being responsive to the new coaches, it's the next 6 weeks that will determine the outcome of our season and success of our season. So these next 6 weeks are the focal point for us now moving forward. We've got to find a way to get our freshman class that just came in married up with the current roster we have and make sure those guys get the right seats on the bus. And big part of what we do is finding out who's on the bus and what seats on the bus they're in. And we as coaches have got to do a great job over the next 6 weeks assembling that. A lot of these kids we brought in will compete playing time, but they'll also provide a kind of depth, which is important in the SEC.
All right, Kirby Smart. The Dogs open up at the Georgia Dome against North Carolina September 3rd. You got to like their schedule because their SEC road games are Missouri, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Kentucky. In Gainesville, they get Auburn at home, they get Georgia Tech at home. So schedule sets up nicely for them, but question marks at quarterback and running back. Will it be Jacob Eason? Will it be Grayson Lambert? Will it be Ramsey at quarterback? The situation, how healthy is Nick Chubb? How long will it be before Sony Michel is healthy again? There are concerns there. They do return some good people up front. They return two of their offensive linemen in Isaiah Wynn and Brandon Kublano. Terry Godwin is back at wide receiver. He's a good one. Blazevich is one of the best tight ends in the SEC. So, you know, they do have to replace most of their defensive front from last year is gone. Jonathan Ledbetter, who was penciled in as a starter, probably not going to be with the Dogs at the beginning of the season. Lorenzo Carter figures to have a great year. Their secondary is back intact, so that's good for Georgia. They'll be good on the back end. They just have to develop some on the front end.
Well, that's the question. Will they be as good on the back end because they're not going to have that pressure up front that they had? So it'll be interesting to see how they do it, because if I wanted to be lackadaisical, I'd rather be on the back end than the front end. Front end can cover up for a lot of sins.
Well, they lost Jordan Jenkins and Leonard Floyd, two outstanding linebackers, so they lose quite a bit there. The health of those running backs and the quarterback situation, key for Georgia. Be right back.
The success we've had over the last couple of years at Mississippi State and building the program has been fantastic. And I'm thankful to everybody that's bought in. We have an unbelievable university.
Welcome back in. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, covering SEC Football Media Days, Day 2 in the books. You know, we've had 7 coaches come through to this point, and now through those 7 coaches, I guess we'd have to say 3 of them are set at quarterback: Vandy, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. Everybody else goes into preseason camp still kind of wondering. Florida might be in the good column if Del Rio turns out to be the guy. I still think there'll be a little competition there in preseason camp. One of those looking for a quarterback situation to be resolved is Mississippi State. They had the luxury of having a great quarterback, maybe the best. They're calling him the best football player ever at Mississippi State, Dak Prescott, who left with about 4,000 passing yards last year, about 600 rushing yards, 39 total touchdowns. So they have to fill very, very big shoes there. Just a couple of years ago, Mississippi State spent a little time at number 1 in the country. Dan Mullen's job is to make sure they don't slide too far down that ladder as they go through a little bit of rebuilding. Here's the coach.
The success we've had over the last couple of years at Mississippi State and building the program has been fantastic. And I'm thankful to everybody that's bought in. We have an unbelievable university administration that bought into a plan 8 years ago, a student body, a fan base that bought into us building a program that's a consistent winner. We're coming off consecutive 9-win seasons, which never happened before. We've had 3 9-win seasons in the last 6 years. And so when you look at that, of changing the expectations, I think 8 years ago I got up here and said we want to change the expectations of Mississippi State football, and I think we've been able to do that. Our players have bought in, and we've been able to do that and going to 6 straight bowl games and building a culture of winning. I'm excited about this year's team. Our guys have been working hard. The attitude of our team, the expectations of the guys within our program, they expect to win football games, and they expect to do it by work ethic that they have every single day and showing up and trying to outwork everybody. Going to be an interesting year for us. We're going to have an interesting quarterback battle. As I've said, coming out of spring, everybody, there's no secret to it. I'm not trying to hold back or play it close to the vest with our quarterback. We had 4 guys competing for the job in spring ball. All of them were still in contention for the job. No one really separated themselves to pull away from one of the other 4 at that position. I'm hoping over the summer that someone does do that. I will be a happy guy to name a starting quarterback and find somebody that has separated themselves from the other 3 throughout the summer, whether it's all the extra work they put in over the summer. If it happens in the first week of training camp, great. If it has to happen game week, fantastic. If it, I hope it does happen, or it might take into the course of the season. We don't know, but excited about those 3 guys. They have. They're going to bring a new look to our offense. We'll be a little bit different on offense this year, but we're going to do that because we're playing with a different quarterback. Got a lot of good players coming back on the offensive side of the ball. All our running backs are back. We have some starters coming back on the offensive line. We're going to have to depend on the running game a little bit more this year than we did last year. Defensively, our defensive philosophy is not going to change, but our personality is, with Peter Sermon coming in as our D coordinator. A lot of new defensive coaches on our staff, and that's always going to change, a little bit of that personality in the room, a little bit of the play call, but our philosophy is not going to change. You see that defense, we're going to have 11 guys running the ball. We're going to be a very, very attacking style of defense that we play out there and that we've played since I've been the head coach, and that we'll always play while I'm the head coach at Mississippi State.
Dan Mullen, Mississippi State, they've got a pretty difficult road schedule. They go to LSU. They go to BYU. They go to Kentucky. They go to Alabama. They go to Ole Miss. And for some reason, they're playing UMass in Foxborough, Massachusetts. So, that's going to be like a road game for them. So they only have South Alabama, USC, Auburn, that's 3, Samford 4, Texas A&M 5, and Arkansas 6. 6 home games. I should have looked this up. What's the rationale behind them playing UMass up in Foxborough? Any idea, Pro?
I have no earthly idea, other than the fact that is Dan Mullen from the New England area?
Here we go. It's because Tulane canceled on them late.
Oh, okay.
They had to scramble to fill with UMass, and so that's why they're going to play. I guess they had to go up there to get it done.
Unbelievable.
I guess they had them over a rock, and they said, all right, we'll play you, but you're going to come up here. and play us at Foxborough. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll come back with a lot of Recruit on Sports Talk. Okay, let's pile up the recruiting news for you here on a Tuesday night. Linebacker Kane McWilliams of Lewisburg, Tennessee, tells us he's going to announce his college decision July 29th. He has a USC offer, he says. Middle Tennessee State, Jacksonville State, Tennessee Tech, and Tennessee Martin. USC offered him in June at a satellite camp near Nashville, and he visited later in the month. He and some of his workout mates who also have USC offers plan to visit USC later this month. He's not saying where he's going. It would appear South Carolina is his best offer, if indeed it's a true offer, and indeed that Will Muschamp wants him. Tell you, I've had so much misleading information from kids here of late. I don't know what to believe sometimes, but when you rely on the kids and their kids only or their coaches for information, sometimes you don't get it. They don't give it to you straight. But he hasn't said where he's going. I'm just presuming that South Carolina will have a good chance to get him since it is his best offer at this point, assuming it is a committable offer. From 247 Sports, linebacker Ellis Brooks of Richmond will visit Auburn Wednesday and camp there Thursday. And he's going to camp at Georgia Saturday, then visit USC Monday. And he has an offer from USC, interest from Auburn and Georgia. At one point, he was committed to Duke, I think it was. Also from 24/7 Sports, 2018 quarterback Trevor Lawrence of Cartersville, Georgia, said his decision is down to Clemson and Georgia. He has been to both and plans to visit both again. A decision could come relatively soon. 2018 quarterback Dakereon Joyner of Fort Dorchester tweeted last night he's cut his list from 10 to 5, but he failed to say who the 5 are. In June, he released a top 10 of USC, Clemson, Florida, Virginia Tech, Georgia, NC State, North Carolina, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Auburn. Defensive back Jeffrey Okudah, Grand Prairie, Texas, probably Grand Prairie, Texas. Top 5 of Clemson, Florida State, Ohio State, Georgia, Southern Cal. USC target M.J. Webb of Madison, Georgia, will visit Kentucky this weekend. Defensive back Terrell Bailey, Marrero, Louisiana. A top 9 of USC, Mississippi State, Arizona State, North Carolina, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Virginia Tech, and Colorado. Athlete Eric Stokes Jr. of Covington, Georgia, plans to camp at USC next week. Hopes that his speed and overall skills will be enough for Will Muschamp to offer him. He said they want him to come to camp so they can see him work at defensive back. They love his speed and his potential. He says they want to see what he can do at defensive back. He said he loves the future for USC. They really have a bright future ahead. Loves their defense. He lists current offers as LSU, Ole Miss, Wake, West Virginia, Purdue, Louisville, and others. He plans to visit Alabama Sunday and Florida a week from Friday. No favorite at this point. He's really fast. He helped his high school win the 4A state track and field championship in May by winning both the 100 and 200 meters. Got a little bit more for you coming up after the top of the hour break.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
We are back, hour number 2, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornbluth, Tom Hayes with you tonight, along with Carson Mason. More from here in Hoover coming up. We have a couple of more coaches to hear from. It will be Butch Jones of Tennessee and Kevin Sumlin of Texas A&M. Around the corner, let me wrap up the recruiting information for you tonight. 2018 receiver Brian Hightower, IMG Academy, Bradenton, Florida, and his teammate, 2018 running back Jamal Elliott. They plan to visit Clemson tomorrow. In basketball, Ole Miss offered Oak Hill Prep, Virginia, point guard Devontae Shuler, the Irmo native. He also has offers from USC, Clemson, Virginia Tech, NC State, Georgetown, and Virginia. 6'2" point guard Jay Morant of Crestwood landed offers last night from Wofford, High Point, UNC Asheville. He now has 7. 6'7" Dwayne Moss of Carolina Forest will be well prepared for his college career. His dad is a former player at Charlotte and currently associate head coach at Coastal. Younger Moss has had a very productive summer, caught the eye of several coaches, including USC's Frank Martin. And he has offers from Charlotte, Middle Tennessee Tech. Let's do that again. Charlotte, Middle Tennessee, Tennessee Tech, New Jersey Tech, Furman, Delaware Coastal, and USC. Now, he said his dad being at Coastal Carolina, that brings up the question about him going there. And he said that's just not the case right now as far as that being an absolute. He says he's wide open, so other schools are involved. He said getting the USC offer expands interest, and he said opens the eyes of people he thinks. He says that Martin told him they like him because he's a big wing who can shoot, and they need more shooting on the team. He's only heard from Clemson through the mail. He's not sure if he'll sign early. There is no favorite. He plans to narrow his list at the end of the month. Speaking of the Gamecocks, checking on Marcus Stroman today with a couple of sources. It looks like now he's not going to end up at East Carolina, as it appeared previously. That situation apparently is not going to work out. And so he did visit with Coastal Carolina. He did talk to Cliff Ellis recently. I think last week he talked to Cliff Ellis down at Coastal. Don't know yet if that's going to be the best available option for him. But it's getting late now in the summer, and you need to find some place to go. So Marcus Stroman still hanging out there with no new school in place at this point. That's recruiting for tonight. Check it out on our website, sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter. Use the hashtag STRecruiting to take you right to our recruiting data. All right, we're going to hit a break here on Sports Talk. We'll come back with more from the coaches here at SEC Media Days 2016. We'll hear from the head Vol, Butch Jones, coming up in a moment.
Terms of our football program, over the last 18 games, we're 13-5. And the amazing thing when you look at it of being 13-5,
Okay, back with you here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornblut, Hoover, Alabama, SEC Media Days rolling along. Had 4 more coaches come through today in front of the media. We've heard from Kirby Smart of Georgia and Dan Mullen of Mississippi State. Let's pick things back up with Tennessee coach Butch Jones. Has a very good-looking team on paper returning for this year. 19 starters are back. They finished last year on a 6-game winning streak. Could have been a lot more had they taken care of business in some other games. I think they've got a real chance to win the East and to win the SEC championship and be in the playoffs. Things have to fall your way, of course. You have to stay healthy. And some guys have to maybe play better than advertised, but they've got the weaponry on offense. They've got some quality defensive players returning as well. Again, with 19 starters returning, they pretty much have a lineup full of veteran players. So I do like Tennessee's chances moving forward into this season. I think Butch Jones feels pretty good about it too. Any coach who has a veteran starting quarterback returning, a 1,000-yard rusher returning, excellent receivers returning, and the nucleus of a very good defense back as well is going to be feeling pretty good. And Butch Jones today here at Media Days expressed that feeling of confidence about the upcoming season.
In terms of our football program, over the last 18 games, we're 13-5. And the amazing thing when you look at it of being 13-5 over the last 18 games is those 5 losses have come by a combined total of 25 points. So what are we doing to take the next step as a football program? And we talk about learning how to finish games, learning how to close games out. We talked about clutch plays, making critical plays at critical moments of the game, and we've showed everyone examples. You look at all the great players. Why are they great players? Because they make a play when it matters the most to lead their team to victory. So we really talked about that. The key for us is starting fast and finishing strong. Our first 7 opponents have a combined win record of almost 70 wins, and they're all 7 of those opponents participated in bowl games. So for us, we have to start fast. We really have an unusual calendar that I think will be a challenge in and of itself for our football program in terms of we have 7 days of training camp. And you say, how can you have 7 days? Well, I'm talking about training camp in terms of just football. The way our academic calendar is structured and lays out is we have summer school, we have 7 days, and then we start the fall semester. So we have to make sure that we do a great job, that we're ready to go and we take advantage of those 7 days, but we also do a great job of finishing strong academically with summer school combined with training camp. This year, probably the most experience in terms of playing experience that we've had since we've been at Tennessee. But the unusual thing is we still only have 11 seniors in our football program, and that's very, very unusual. So we have to continue to build depth. We have to continue to build experience, and how you build that is through playing time, through recruiting, and through growth and development. In terms of the coaching staff, we have 2 new additions to our coaching staff. We have a new defensive coordinator and Bob Shoop, and Bob has done a great job of coming in, and we really have reaped the benefits since he joined our staff. He's done a great job of building the relationships that it takes to be extremely successful with not only our defensive players but everyone in our football family and our football program. And then Larry Scott, who coaches our tight ends and will also be our special teams coordinator, has done a great job, just like Bob, of really establishing relationships. It's new energy, it's new ideas, and they've been great additions to our football family.
All right, Butch Jones from today. I really think, Pro, that Tennessee is set to return to the top of Rocky Top with this particular team. It's been a long, hard climb for this program to dig its way out from the pit that was created in the program after Philip Fulmer's ouster, and the coaches that they went through, and it just went from bad to worse to worse. They just could not get a coach in there to get it. Well, Lane Kiffin might have been that guy if he'd have just stayed, but he bolted. Nothing else worked, but Bush Jones has done an excellent job of recruiting at Tennessee. It's one thing he and the staff there have done. They recruit extremely well. Of course, they've got a lot of good things to sell at Tennessee. And you look at their lineup, as he mentioned, it's young, but there are a lot of starters back. He played a lot of freshmen and redshirt freshmen the last couple of years, and that's paid off now with an experienced team that is still pretty young. But schedule's not going to be easy. But it's a national championship type schedule. You win against this schedule, you're going to be playing on New Year's Eve, probably at 3 o'clock in Atlanta. They do play Virginia Tech in Bristol. They get Florida at home, but they've got a stretch there of Florida, at Georgia, at Texas A&M, and then Alabama. That's going to test them right there. They play USC in Columbia. They get Kentucky and Missouri at home. They play at Vanderbilt. So that stretch there, September 24th through October 15th, will tell the tale for Tennessee this year. Handle that stretch. Go cleanly through that stretch if it's possible. They're home free, really, as things stack up the rest of the way for them, Pro. So this team looks good on paper, and I think in reality it's a good football team.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. A lot of people question the character of their coaching staff, especially the head coach. He can get a little bit quirky at times, and let's face it, the propensity for them to blow games late, and that would include the game against South Carolina, because that game was there to be won, and then of course the fumble that cost South Carolina that game in Knoxville. And it just seems like in the fourth quarter something happens to them, and they go clock watching. How many seconds is left? And instead of just playing the way they did early in the ball game, they tend to take the foot off the accelerator, and that's been a common thread with this Tennessee team, even when they started getting a little bit of experience in playing. So they shore that up, and they take care of business early. Mentally, I think they can stay the course. Corn, I'm telling you, if they blow it against Florida, Alabama, I think the psyche of this team is still somewhat delicate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing about Dobbs, he's a wonderful athlete at quarterback. He's obviously a very smart person. Was he majoring in aerospace engineering or something crazy like that? But he's not a great down-the-field passer, even though he's got very good down-the-field weapons, and that's an area that they've been working with him on this offseason to make him a more complete quarterback. He obviously is very elusive and can run the short game, but his down-the-field passing game has needed some work. But with his offensive line, he'll have plenty of time, and his mobility in that offensive line, he'll have plenty of time to sit back there and let his receivers run their patterns. So hard not to vote Tennessee number one in the East, and you'll be looking at a number of Tennessee players landing on the All-SEC preseason team when that comes out on Thursday. It's going to be intriguing, too, to watch that game with Virginia Tech at Bristol. From what they were saying today, everything is in place at Bristol. That game is going to be on September 10th. They play Virginia Tech there September 10th. And pretty much everything is I think it was Butch Jones talking about it today, where he said most everything is in place, except for there was something, was it a scoreboard or coach's booth or something that was not complete, but I guess they are hard at work trying to get that racetrack in shape to host a big interconference football game between Tennessee and Virginia Tech. And I believe it's sold out too. So you're talking what? If they sold the whole thing out, you're talking 100,000 plus people at that game. Be right back.
For us, offensively, like I said, we came through spring football. We've got great talent at the wide receiver position. Everybody knows that.
Okay, let's wrap up the coaches from today here at SEC Media Days. Kevin Sumlin from Texas A&M, new quarterback, new attitude on his behalf, new excitement. Here's the coach.
For us, offensively, like I said, we came through spring football. We've got great talent at the wide receiver position. Everybody knows that. For the first time, we had 5 running backs in the spring. Anybody who saw our spring game saw we played a bunch of different guys. We'll continue down that road with what we want to do. Offensive line-wise, although it appears like we don't have a lot of experience when it comes to starts in an offensive line, we do have a lot of game experience because our 2 guards rotated last year. All 3 guards in there are guys who've played for us, and our left tackle's back. So, really we'll have a brand new center. And our right tackle, Coda Martin, really played a little bit of tight end for us and all over the place last year as a player. So, these are guys who've been on the field for us, guys that can do the job. The only guy who really hadn't played is our center. But Eric McCoy had a fabulous spring, and when he's trying to block some of the guys that we have on our defensive front, I'm anxious to see him grow. Defensively, second year with Chief, I think we made some strides last year. Obviously, statistically, we were better as a defense. We've got to get better. Our front's going to be pretty good. We got 2 of the best defensive ends in the country in Myles Garrett and Deshaun Hall. Inside with Dalen Mack and Kingsley Kiki and Zakoven Henderson, some real 300-pound guys in there. There'll be a real rotation in the 2 deep of guys that can play with anybody in this league. Chief has said it before I've said it. He feels like, and I feel like, we have as good a safety tandem as there is in the country. Along with Donovan Wilson, you add him as a nickel, who's a great playmaker. We're good. So the key for us is going to be the second level, how our linebackers come along. Sean Washington continues and got some guys in there that can get the job done, who are bigger and stronger. We can be a top-level defense if our linebackers continue to improve. So just from an overall standpoint, as philosophically going into spring, I don't think it's any secret for us to be the team that we want to be, the team that we need to be, the team that we can be. We got to run the ball better. Even though we had a 1,200-yard rusher, we've got to be able to run it a little bit more when we need to run it. Whether that means we got to have a 2,000-yard rusher to do it, I don't know that that's the case. I think we've got enough talent to maybe rotate those guys and get to some substantial numbers there. And we've got to get better at stopping the run. And that was a point of emphasis during the spring. Fortunately, as a head coach, that's pretty easy to practice because those 2 units can beat the hell out of each other during spring ball, which is what we did. So I like where we are. I like the chemistry of this football team. I like where the locker room is. I like where their mind is. And I think the 3 guys that we brought are pretty reflective of that. And as you get a chance to know them and you get a chance to talk to them.
Okay, that's Kevin Sumlin. Of course, they have a new offensive coordinator in Noel Mazzone, who came from UCLA, and they'll open up the season against UCLA. So we'll see if that works in A&M's favor, having a former UCLA coordinator now coordinating for them. We'll be right back. Little break from all the football talk here in Hoover to talk some NASCAR as we welcome in from Darlington, Public Relations Director Dennis Worden. Dennis, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing good, Phil. Having me on again 2 weeks in a row. I can't even believe it.
Well, it's that's what the public wants. They demand, and we deliver.
Well, hopefully next week our new president, Kerry Tharp, will be on next week. So
I heard KT working at Kentucky over the weekend.
I know it. Yeah, he had to finish up his job duties at NASCAR. It was the last NASCAR weekend in Kentucky, and yep, he'll be in maybe a day or two at the end of this week, and he'll be starting first thing Monday. So hopefully he'll be able to come on with you guys start next week, which will be exciting.
That's great. That's great. Really enjoyed the race at Kentucky. I thought it was competitive. I thought it was intriguing with the question about the fuel mileage and the coyness of Keselowski, and just watching the final laps there and how it all unfolded. It was a good race, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, Kentucky hasn't traditionally put on real great shows, but obviously fans like to see a lot of wrecks, and obviously they tied their caution record with 11 cautions, which is always good to bunch up the field a little bit. And yeah, I mean, in my mind, he probably had the best car in the field, but he was able to stretch out the fuel mileage and obviously coast to the win. 2 in a row. First he's winning obviously the restrictor plate track in Daytona, and then winning at Kentucky. So he's on a little bit of a roll right now, which is good to see for the sport.
Well, in the short history of Kentucky, he's done well there. That's 3 wins. He's won half the races that they've run there. So he's got a nice feel for that place.
Yeah, and you didn't really know what to expect. We talked about that last week about the repave of the track, and you didn't know really what to expect. And obviously there was quite a few accidents. A lot of the Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, the rookies kind of getting into it there and getting a little bit of an incident, and so you didn't really know what to expect. So it was a good show for Kentucky. They've had their challenges the last few years since they've been on the schedule. So it's nice to see some of those other tracks, especially the 1.5 miles that traditionally sometimes don't always put on the best racing, to be able to put on a good show for the fans.
Yeah, one guy who probably wished he just stayed home, Jimmy Johnson. Remember, he hit the wall in practice. He wrecks out in this race, finishes way back in 32nd spot. He's had a few bad weekends here of late.
Yeah, he started the season really strong. I mean, he obviously won the second race of the year, Atlanta. Got a couple, another win or two since then. And, but over the last few weeks, they just, for whatever reason, Hendrick Motorsports in general has struggled a little bit. So, I'm not really sure what's going on with them, especially with Jimmy Johnson. I mean, you can consider him a consistent, top 5 car, top 10 car on a regular basis. So for him to see him struggling is a little bit of a challenge for the Hendrick Motorsports stable. But, Jimmy's got he's got wins under his belt. He's in a good position, obviously, for the chase. So, I'm sure they're probably trying a few new things as well, trying to figure out how they get more speed out of the car as they get into those chase tracks here in just a few weeks. It's hard to believe it's going to be that soon, but I don't anticipate they'll have any problems once the chase starts.
Another good showing by Tony Stewart, finishing 5th. So he continues to solidify his place in the top 30 to make sure he's going to have a spot in the playoffs.
And I love it. I mean, I love it for Tony Stewart. I mean, he's had so many challenges over the last couple of 3 years, and obviously he missed a lot of the first few races of the season this year. So for him to get a win and obviously getting some top 10, top 5 finishes, I mean, that's great for Tony Stewart, Stewart House Racing. I mean, it's his last season, just like we kind of cheered on Jeff Gordon last year. And all he did coming down to the last race of the year. You really hope for a Tony Stewart in his last season to be able to put a nice little run together here, and maybe who knows, he might be able to win another championship. You just don't, in the chase format, if you can get hot at the right time, you just never know what's going to happen. And he's proven back in 11, won half the chase races that year. If they can get it figured out, he's in a pretty good position to hopefully challenge.
All right, and we go to New Hampshire this weekend to that flat track up there for the New Hampshire 301. Sounds like a highway. 301, New Hampshire 301. Then Indy's right around the corner, so we got some good stuff coming up. And what's happening at your place now? I'm sure the activity is picking up as we look towards Labor Day.
Yeah, it is. And we're really in the thick of things right now. We're getting Kerry on board, starting next week and trying to get him up to speed. And obviously we'll have some, as you know, we usually have some good media events coming up here in August leading into the race. And, I think there's a lot of good momentum going on right now. We're selling, a bunch of tickets, and we've got a lot of great things to announce. Obviously, the teams have a bunch more special paint schemes that they're going to announce for the race coming up in the next few weeks. So this is the time now where we start building that momentum, as we get into the next six weeks here. And, we're 56 days away. So we're definitely in the thick of it, and looking forward to hosting the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series here on Labor Day weekend.
Well, you're seventh in line, so it's coming quickly. Now, what are you hearing from your friends over at Bristol? Because they've got a race coming up here in just a couple of weeks in August, and then they've got the big football game that they're going to be staging. Have you talked with them at all about where they are in their preparation, not just for the race, but for the football game? How are they going to handle both of those huge events so closely together?
Well, that's the great thing about what we do, Phil, is that, we're promoters. We're used to putting on large-scale events every year. And so I have no question that Bristol and the group they have out there, they're a top-notch group, and they'll be ready for sure. I mean, it reminds me of my days in Michigan when we had races in June and August. So you had your June race, and then 2 months later you had to get ready for the August race, and it was a whole new ball game. So you had to, we're used to these kind of situations where you have to plan on the fly sometimes. And it's been for, obviously many months now that they've been working on it and getting the infrastructure in place and whatnot. I really can't wait to see what's going to happen during that football game. 'Cause you've been talking a lot of football tonight. Everybody's excited that the season's upon us here coming up pretty soon. And I'm as excited as anybody to get football going and to see those two great programs, go at it at Bristol Motor Speedway. It's going to be a great television event. It's going to be great for the fans that attend, but they'll be ready to go. There's no question about it. Once that race is over, you know darn well they'll be ready. They'll be hopping right on it the next week and getting ready for the big game.
I'm looking at their website. It's called the Pilot Flying J Battle at Bristol, Tennessee versus Virginia Tech. And then it looks like they're going to be hosting a Kenny Chesney concert on September the 9th. And they've also got another football game. They're going to have East Tennessee State and Western Carolina playing there on September 17th. So my question, I mean, these kind of ideas kind of float around NASCAR. Could we see Darlington pick up on some of these leads?
It'd be pretty nice. I wish we had the infrastructure and the infield design for something like that. As you know, being at our track for many years, we unfortunately don't have quite the infield that Bristol has to maybe host a football game.
Yep.
It would be a great. I mean, I think the concert thing is definitely something we've talked about over the last couple of years. That's been on Chip's radar when he was here for the last 2 years, and I think that was something that we've really tried to push for, if it makes sense. We're still, hopefully in the next couple of years, maybe we can get some of the concert stuff off the ground, which we're trying to do. But as far as football, I don't think our facility's conducive for that unless you're playing it out in the parking lot.
Yeah. That's going to be some weekend. So they've got Kenny Chesney on the Friday night before the big football game between Tennessee and Virginia Tech. So they've got a concert on Friday, the football game on Saturday, and another football game the following Saturday. So busy times at Bristol. Yeah. Dennis, we thank you, my friend. Have a great night. We'll talk to you next week, or we'll talk to KT.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Appreciate it, bud.
Thank you so much. Okay. So, a lot of things happening there at Bristol. It's going to be a beautiful sight to see. He's right. I mean, Bristol being that bowl that it is, it has the natural seating, to handle an event on its infield. I wonder how the sight lines are going to be from those seats way up at the top. Back in a moment. Okay, thanks again to Dennis Worden for joining us here tonight on Sports Talk. Let's get back to the football conversation as on a rare occurrence here on Sports Talk for the second time of the week. It's time for Morgan on the Move. Morgan joining us to talk about his day around SEC Media Days, brought to you by Play It Again Sports in Columbia, the place to go for golf equipment, fitness equipment, water sports, and more. Bauer Parkway in Harbison. Buy, sell, and trade. And by Founders Federal Credit Union. Check out foundersfcu.com. Learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. All right, Mike, what did you take away from today's activities?
Well, I think the biggest buzz in the room was about Kirby Smart and what he's about to tackle and take on in Athens. You know, it's really rare when you think about it for a coach like Mark Richt, who averaged 10 wins a year, who won multiple conference titles, and who had very little in the way of impropriety with the NCAA. I know a lot of his players have gotten in trouble off the field stuff, but there's been no cheating allegations of any kind or paying of players, etc. And in this day and age, that's pretty rare, as we're finding out. But obviously, the message from above was that's not good enough. The message from above is we're Georgia. We expect more. If LSU, Florida, Auburn, Alabama can win national titles and play for others, why in the heck can't we? And it's a pretty valid question when you think about it. So as much as I like Mark Richt, I understood the move, and now I think everybody's trying to figure out what do they have in Kirby Smart. Do they have this genius defensive mind who's going to provide a much-needed spark and energy in the program that maybe has been missing? Or are they going to find out some of the tough pitfalls from a first-year or first-time head coach, much like Will Muschamp had at Florida? One of the two or somewhere in between, but I know from being around that fan base nowadays, just winning 9 to 10 games a year is not good enough in Athens. It's just I think that combined with Dan Mullen, I think a lot of people wanted to know how he was going to handle, and you know more about recruiting than I do, Phil, but you know he's got a 5-star kid who's another guy accused of domestic abuse, and I don't think that Dan Mullen did particularly well answering those questions, honestly. And I think he's already taken some heat for it. So those are two things that stood out to me more than anything else.
Okay. You have to look at Tennessee, listening to Butch Jones and looking at their personnel, and not only think they're going to easily be picked to win the East, they're going to get a lot of votes to win the whole thing. That's on paper. And then in reality, they play a tough schedule. But if they're good enough to win those games, then they're going to be playing on New Year's Eve. This is a team that could win the national championship, do you think?
I think they're certainly the favorite to win the East. And the East could desperately use not just a good team, but a really good team to win it. I think it's 7 years now in a row the West has defeated the East in Atlanta. That's unprecedented, and it's a feather in the cap of the teams in the Western Division. It's also indicative of the fact the East has been down for a long time, and I don't know why or how that is. There's probably 1,000 different factors, but when you look at all the things that went on at Tennessee and how long they were down before Butch has finally propped them back up here, how Florida's been down post Urban Meyer, how South Carolina's down now, how Georgia can't get over the hump, how Kentucky and Vanderbilt, for the most part, stay Kentucky and Vanderbilt. I mean, the fact that Missouri went to back-to-back Eastern Division titles, that tells you more about how the East has been down than how good Missouri is, in my estimation. Some people might say that's not fair. But to answer your question, I think Tennessee is certainly the favorite to win the East. I don't know if they're good enough to win the whole thing. And I don't think they're getting to a playoff scenario unless they beat whoever comes out of the West. And right now, I just don't see it. Maybe they'll convince me in the first few weeks. They've got a couple of big games early on. But right now, I think the best scenario for Tennessee is win the East, have a respectable showing in Atlanta, and then go on to a quality bowl game and win it. And that tells Vol Nation that Butch Jones is legitimate and that they are on the right path.
Okay, 30 seconds. From your conversations with folks, I know you were probably asked a lot about the Gamecocks or talking to people a lot about the Gamecocks. Where do you think they're going to fall in the poll on Thursday in the East?
Bottom couple of teams. I think it'll depend on whether or not you feel they're going to defeat Vanderbilt on that Thursday night in Nashville, or whether you don't. And if you do, you pick them ahead, and if you don't, you pick them behind. Honestly, you ask me to judge where everybody else is thinking. They are not on the radar right now for most people's mind. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, more often than not, the people that have been picking the Eastern Division have been flat out wrong. Yeah. But that's where they are right now. They have been kind of caught in the irrelevant zone from a national perspective, and they've got to prove to the country that they are legitimate.
Yeah, and all the voting will be done by the time Muschamp and company come in to plead their case. Thank you, Mike. We enjoyed it. We'll be right back here on Sports Talk to wrap it up. All right, back for our final few moments tonight here on Sports Talk. Coming up tomorrow, it's day 3. 4 more coaches will come through along with their players. It'll begin with Alabama and Arkansas. The morning wave in the afternoon, it's Kentucky and Missouri. And then on Thursday, we wrap it up with USC, Ole Miss, and LSU. So we're flying right along here. Nick Saban will be in the main room first thing tomorrow morning at 10:05 Eastern time. So there'll be a crowd of Alabama folks out there. They always are when Alabama makes its appearance. And he'll be joined by Jonathan Allen, O.J. Howard, and Eddie Jackson. As far as anybody else of note, JoJo Kemp from Kentucky. Gosh, it seems like he's been at Kentucky 8 years. And that's about it as far as anybody that really jumps off the sheet at me here. I was just reading more on Dan Mullen. When he was in with us in the big room, he was asked a question about the Simmons kid. And as Mike pointed out, didn't give much of an answer, hardly did not even address it directly. And as he made the rounds of the other interview areas, he was asked repeatedly about it. He was asked, for example, if it's your wife or your daughter who Simmons hit, would you feel the same way about him? And he responded, I think he's a young man who did opportunity. I have the opportunity to help mold him. Another question, if it was your family member being assaulted, would you feel the same way? He responded, I don't think it would be my family. In the video, I don't know if my family would be in that situation.
He's correct, because let's face it, even though the kid pummeled that woman or whatever attacked his sister or mother beforehand. Now,
well, verbally, I think did she physically attack or verbally attack?
I don't know which one it was, but I mean, you know, a lot of times we have to look at the entire video and not just the 10 seconds. But
well, let me continue with his Q&A here. Why not? Anybody can be on the ground and be assaulted. He responded, honestly, I'm very strongly against any violence. I think the video does not really define who that young man is. I would hate for anybody for their life to be defined not only by 10 seconds of video, that is now all you get to do in life. You don't get an opportunity to get an education. You don't get an opportunity to be mentored by father figures when you don't have a father. Even with 10 seconds of video question, do you understand some player saying he wouldn't want to play with him? Answer, I think that once they got more information, that changed. And then why only a one-game suspension, he was asked. He said that was all a university-based decision. Make sure it was not based on football. The university wanted to make sure it was a university-wide decision. So I can sort of understand his position. Don't throw away a young man's life over one mistake like that, if that's all it has been is one mistake. And so the discussion and the debate will continue as to whether or not the penalty was strong enough. Thank you, Pro. Thank you, Carson. Thanks for being with us tonight, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.